Okay, bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Um, I'm live from France, from Paris, actually. Um, I'm gonna have a really bad connection. I don't know if I can actually stream this. We'll see. I have a free day today, so I figured it was a good time to do this rather than tomorrow when I don't have a free day. So I'm in my hotel room. I've got my Le McDonald's, and yeah, I guess we can chat. Um, yeah, France. It's pretty wild. I was I was very close last night. I was walking along and I was thinking, this city isn't actually that bad. And then we encountered a piss stained drunk guy walking around the street, so that changed my mind a little bit. Um, I guess I'll just go through our itinerary so I can discuss things that have occurred. Um, okay, so we started out last Monday with me driving to my sister's house, which is like a 40-minute drive. Then we drove together to like a Walmart meeting place, which was like a 10-minute drive. Then from there, we went to the bus depot, which was like another 15-minute drive or something like that. Then we waited at the bus depot. We all got on the bus, and that took us to the O'Hare Airport in Chicago. And that was like an hour and a half or something like that. That was a while. So we get to O'Hare. Keep in mind, I've never been on an airplane before. I've never been in an airport. I've never done anything in the air. So that was all kind of new. And we're a group of 10. And this is a school trip for my nephew. And so I don't know any of these people really. I know my sister, I know my nephew, and then there's like 7 other people that I've never met before. I have no idea who they are. I'm not part of this school. I'm not a Panther per se or anything like that. I don't know them. They don't know me. So it's just kind of, okay, here we go on a big trip. So there's the teacher, the French teacher who's on the trip. She's pretty nice. She's kind of like a Miss Frizzle, I guess, is how I would describe her, from Magic School Bus. So that's fine. Then you've got my nephew, of course, and then you've got the 3 teenage girls that are on the trip with us. So that's weird. That's weird. Um, because like it's crazy that they're all like this in the same class. Because one of them looks like she's 12. One of them looks like she's like 14, and then one of them looks like she's 18. So then you've got one of the girls' moms, one of the girls' mothers, and then one of the girls' aunts, and then one of the other girls' aunts for some reason. And so together it all comes out to 10 people. So, I mean, we've gotten to know each other, I guess, since we've been here, so they're a nice group. I don't really have many complaints. They're a bit bubbly, because it's, 90% female, and they're all very excited about France and Paris, and they just love they love the whole culture and the city and all that. And, me, I'm not sure. I'm not sure why I'm here, to be honest. I think I was kind of roped into it. I was learning French, but I stopped learning French. I switched to German. And so I think I got signed up for this back when I was learning French. And they were just like, oh, you like French? You like Paris? Come with us. I remember being a little apprehensive at the time. But, we also get to see London. We leave on Monday, go through the Channel, and we're going to London. So I've always kind of wanted to see London, so I guess that's part of it. But let me just say, if I wasn't going to Germany afterwards and doing all that kind of stuff, I'd probably be a bit more upset. Not that the whole experience is bad. It's just not really worth $4,500 or $5,000 or whatever. So, but since I get the whole Germany thing, hopefully the whole trip becomes, worth it. Anyways, so we get to O'Hare. And luckily, we have people that are used to traveling and have done plenty of traveling and stuff like that. So it's not just a complete clusterfuck of anything. And so we check our bags and we check in and blah, blah, blah. And we go all that and we go through security. And this was the stuff that I was worried about because, for the last however many years, I've just heard about how annoying airport security is and the whole process and, blah, 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 blah. And so I was a little concerned about that. And I was like, how long is this going to take? It's actually really quick. Relatively so, at least as far as I thought. I did not think it would be that painless. Now, it could just be that we were traveling, if we were flying on a Monday afternoon or something like that. But still, it seemed pretty simple. You get in the security line. The security line moves pretty quickly along. And, they say, okay, have your shoes off. They have you take your shoes off, but they don't have you take your socks off. And this kind of confuses me because I'm not sure exactly what you're smuggling in your shoes that you couldn't just smuggle in the bottom of your sock against your foot, Like if I wanted to smuggle like a really thin blade, I feel like I could do that under my sock, but I don't know. I'm not the expert. So, shoes off, and then they have these buckets, and you put all your shit in these buckets, along with all your carry-on bags and blah, blah, blah. And so I saw a sign. I'm the only person on the trip that's bringing a laptop because I don't know, I just couldn't do 20 days without some form of a computer, so I brought my laptop. And there's a sign that says, remove your laptop from the bag to make things quicker and easier. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense because I've seen television shows and blah, blah, blah. They check your laptop, they make you turn it on, blah, blah, blah. So I pull out my laptop, I put it in a bucket, and I put all my other shit on top of it. And I didn't really give it much thought, I just did it. And so then we go through the little metal detector and all that and blah, 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 and they do like a visual inspection of you to make sure that you're not brown, I guess. And then, so we're standing on the other side, and everybody else in our group is getting all their stuff through the conveyor belt and all that, and my thing does not come through. And I see it gets pulled aside, and I'm like, oh, well, okay, they must pull all laptops aside to check them. But then the guy right behind me, he gets off, he pulls his laptop out of the bucket, and he goes on his way, and I'm like, uh-oh, what's wrong with my laptop? What have I got on there? And pretty much it was just that I was supposed to put it in its own bucket all by itself, and I did not do that. And no one said anything. There was no sign that indicated that. And the lady started scolding me. He's like, you did half the job. You took it out of the bag. You heard that. And I'm like, well, I saw it on a sign. He's like, oh, you saw it on a sign. It's like, well, what do you want from me? You either put directions everywhere or just, I don't know, cut a man a break. I'm hoping that this is all audible in some way. I don't know. I'm hoping. And so then from then on, we had like, oh gosh, a couple hours or something like that. At least 2 hours. Where we were past the security checkpoints. We were in just the gate area, just waiting for the airplane. And so we got some food. I got some like Panda Express knockoff called like Manchu Wok Man, something like, I don't know. And it was fine. It was fine. And I bought like a neck pillow because apparently neck pillows are really good to have on long flights. And so it was at this point, around this point, that we were all looking at our tickets and looking at our seat arrangements and things like that. And we discovered that a couple of us were not with the group. That includes me. I was not with like everyone else was in like a row of 9 or row of 8 or something like that. And I was thrown in the back and another girl was thrown in the back. And so we go ask about it. And it's because basically that this other girl and myself are extending our trips. And so they had to change the flight arrangements for us. And so I got booted to the back. And there was really nothing they could do about it. There was really absolutely nothing other than like me going around and talking to strangers to see if they want to swap seats or something like that. But that seemed really unlikely. So it was just like, oh, well, I'm on my own and for my first flight and I'll just be in the back and I'll be surrounded by strangers. So, okay. So we finally get on board the plane. It does arrive on time and all that, and it's ready to go. And so I get on, and of course, we're all in economy. That's what they call it now. I don't know if you're aware. They don't call it third class or anything like that, because that sounds like you're a piece of shit. They call it economy, because that's, you're being economical by being crammed into these cheap, shitty seats. And so I got an aisle seat in the middle, which I was happy about. I'd rather not be crammed directly in the middle of everything. At least I get the aisle. I would later come to regret it a little bit because my elbow continually got knocked by carts and flight attendants and things like that. So that was a little unfortunate, but maybe it was still better overall. So I'm sitting there, in my aisle seat, and the seats next to me are empty, and I'm just like, okay, I'm just waiting, like, who is this stranger that's going to sit next to me? I'm expecting a dude as big as me and, horrible BO, just like a nightmare, passenger that I'm going to have to sit next to for 8 hours and just, ugh. And of course, eventually a cute 20-something-year-old girl climbs into the seat next to me. Which, my first thought was like, okay, this is kind of, it's nice, I guess. That's, I guess, a good thing. But it's also kind of worse. Because, like, I'm going to feel, like, awkward doing anything. I want to sit there and pull out, like, my Switch and play Disgaea or something like that, and I'm just going to have this attractive girl sitting next to me and be like, what a fucking weirdo. There's judgments. Girls just judge things. That's what I think. So it's kind of like, and I didn't say anything to her, and we just kind of sat there for a while. But shortly before the plane took off, she actually did turn to me and talk to me. And she asked me if I was flying by myself and, what I was doing and, blah, 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 blah. And she actually turned out to be a really nice girl. She was flying to Paris, and then she was getting another plane to Copenhagen, where she was living for like 2 months. Like, she's been everywhere, and she's traveling all over the world and living all over the world. Kind of a unique person, I guess. But she was really nice, so it actually wasn't too bad. Um, but she was like, she was a really small person. She was really tiny, and so she was putting on her seatbelt for the flight, and she was just like done. Whereas me, I'm just like, and just okay. So yeah, it was very cramped. I mean, I'm definitely a big guy. I'm not going to be shy about it. I'm certainly bigger than most passengers. And so I don't think it was really comfortable for almost any adult, adult male, I guess. But yeah, it was definitely uncomfortable. Um, the biggest problem I have is with like my feet and my ankles. There's really not many ways for an 8-hour flight that you can really position your feet and ankles to be comfortable. When you're bigger, because it's like, I mean, sitting for 8 hours at all is not comfortable, really, almost in any situation. At home, I have like a deluxe, kind of gaming chair that's designed to be sat in for that long. And even then, you're able to stretch out in any sort of position that you want to be with your legs and all that, and you can stand up whenever you want, and you can walk around whenever you want. And on a plane, I could have stood up and walked around a little bit and things like that, but not really without looking just like a spectacle. So, and I didn't want to deal with the seatbelt again and anything like that. So I stayed in my chair for the 8-hour flight. I did not go to the bathroom or anything like that. And that actually, like, I wasn't like, even when I got off the flight, I wasn't like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. I can hold my bladder for a really long time. But yeah, it was certainly an uncomfortable flight. I did not enjoy the experience. E3 was going on. The Sony press conference started like an hour and a half into the flight. And so I actually purchased Wi-Fi for the flight. It cost like $20 or something like that. But I was like, oh, $20. For me to alleviate the pains of this flight a little bit by watching the Sony conference. That was completely worth it to me. But what ended up happening was, well, for one, the Wi-Fi was pretty shit, for one, which was a bummer. But two, I purchased it on my laptop, and you weren't, unless you were like a member of something, you weren't allowed to like transfer the Wi-Fi connection between different devices. And so I could only use the Wi-Fi on my laptop, but I, again, say how small and cramped the seats were. And so I could use my laptop, and I did for a little bit, by like, here. By like, this is how it normally is, right? This would be your laptop, and this is how you'd be normally watching, or maybe tilted back a little bit and stuff like that. For me to actually watch the screen, to actually see it, I had to do like this. And so it was basically like this. And I just felt like an utter again, going back to this girl. So this girl's just, she could probably see my screen completely as well. And so I'm just sitting there like just some just ridiculous weirdo propping up my laptop in this very cramped space to watch a gaming conference. And it just, I don't know, it just did not feel good to me. Again, it's probably just, self-perspective and all that kind of stuff, but I would have much preferred to just watch it on my phone, which would have just been a better deal overall. I just did not think about it. I wasn't going to pay another $20 for a second Wi-Fi, so I was just like, screw it. And so most of the flight was me pretty much, I don't know, I'm trying to think of really what I did on that flight. I never pulled out my 3DS. I never pulled out my Switch. I went on my phone a bit. I nodded off in between and out of sleep, but I didn't really get much sleep. I did my laptop a little bit. And then later on, on the flight, they had these headsets in the back of every chair. And so they provided in-flight movies and stuff like that people could watch. The thing was, I was really stupid. All right, I can be really stupid. People were watching these movies, right? And they were apparently listening to sound, right? Because there was not sound blaring out of every headset. People had earphones in, and I was like, where are they plugging in these earphones to listen to the sound from this headset from these movies? And there was nothing like on. There was no jack on the headset that you could plug in or anything like that. And I just was so confused. I was like, I don't know how people are they plugging them into their phones and there's some sort of phone like no, that can't, because they had an app, and I was like, okay, I know you can access the movies and stuff through the app, but I didn't get how it worked. And I didn't want to ask the girl next to me, and I was just like, screw it. She watched like 3 movies on the whole flight. She was smart. I later found out that there's a headphone jack in the armrest of each chair that you plug into, which did not occur to me, and I did not really look because, again, I didn't want to make big spectacles of just, it wasn't a big deal. And later on in the flight, towards like the last 2 hours or so, I ended up loading it up on my phone through their app, and I started to watch Coming to America with Eddie Murphy on my phone, which actually was probably better off because if you haven't seen the movie, in like the first 5 minutes or something like that, they just have like naked breasts on the screen. And so if that was on my headset television, with like kids 3 feet from me, I don't know, it would have been a little awkward. So at least it was on my phone and it was fine. The food on the plane, not that great, but not as bad as I thought it would be. Dinner, I had like this chicken, which kind of had this weird flavor, and there was like these greens, quinoa or something like that, and there was, I guess, mashed potatoes, but they were not like anything I've ever seen. And then there was like the spinach and like this weird cold. Somebody said it was couscous, but I'll talk about couscous later. They were not the same dishes. And then I think there was like a piece of bread, and the bread was good. Chicken was okay. The mashed potatoes were okay, and is what it is. For dessert, they gave us like this packaged gelato, which was really delicious. It was like this caramel gelato I really liked. Then for breakfast, because again, it was a long flight. For breakfast, got like yogurt and I think some bread. Oh, I don't even remember. I thought the yogurt was okay. I don't know. Kids, on the other hand, for dinner got like a hot dog and applesauce. And for breakfast, they got like a muffin. They just seem to have better food for kids overall. Except kid right next to me, across the aisle right next to me, during dinner, drops his applesauce straight down onto the floor, and it splatters all over my leg and my laptop. And no one cared. No one gave a shit. Like, it felt like no one even noticed other than me. And I'm sitting there just like wiping my leg and my laptop off. And I guess I got to give the kid some props. He like managed to wipe some of it up, to the fact that, when his dad came back, who was in the bathroom, he happened to drop it when his dad is in the bathroom. His dad didn't even notice that he dropped it, and so there was just no repercussion, and no one cared. So that's nice. Anyways, so the plane lands, and we all shuffle off the plane. I say goodbye to the girl next to me, and blah, blah, blah. And so we start walking, out from the plane and all that, and we start walking out of there. And we get to the part where we have all the guys holding up signs and stuff like that are waiting for people. And so the teacher approaches this guy who's carrying a sign that says World Stride, which perplexed me at first because the whole tour that we're a part of is called Explorica. And so I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but she's talking to this guy, and apparently Explorica is planning to change their name to World Stride, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure why you would you either change your name or you don't change your name. Like, why are you doing it in like bursts? I don't know. So they started talking to this guy who's a French guy named Alex and blah blah blah, and he seems a little confused, and the teacher seems a little confused, and something does not seem right. And but he's like, okay, I guess we'll go and blah blah blah. And so we start following this guy. We follow this guy for like 50 feet, something like that, just a little bit out of the airport, towards the direction out of the airport. And then something else comes to light, and he says that, basically he says that we're not his group. We were supposed to meet an Alex, I guess, but his group that he's supposed to meet is apparently from San Francisco, not Wisconsin, so he thought we were the San Francisco group, I guess. And so he pretty much just says, like, okay, I'm sorry, good luck. And he just walks off. And so now we're sitting there. We didn't see anyone else from Explorica or World Stride or anything like that. We are just sitting there. And so we sit there for about 2 hours, I would say, in an airport in Paris. We sit there for about 2 hours while we try to contact Explorica. And we try to sort out exactly what happened, what was supposed to happen, what the hell's going on, why are we still sitting here? And, the teacher and my sister get increasingly upset. Because they really bungled this, right? And so we find out that there is another guy from Explorica who's going to come and meet us, whose name is Alex, right? And so at first we're not sure if it's the same Alex and he fucked up royally, or if it's just another French guy named Alex. It turns out to be another French guy named Alex. And he just, like, struts in. Like, literally, he's not, like, he didn't look like he was rushing in or anything like that. He just he has, like, this real casual walk. He's got headphones around his neck. He's just got a backpack on. He's like, bonjour. And so I still don't know what happened. Like, I still have no idea what the mix-up was or how things were supposed to turn out or anything like that. I don't know if the first guy really fucked up or the second guy was just really freaking late. I have no idea. And so then what happens is he is apparently going to wait. I don't know. He is apparently going to meet up with another group that's arriving that's also part of our tour. So they were arriving in like an hour. So he says, we can just wait with him and Explorica will buy us some snacks at the cafe. And so that's a really small consolation because we've already been there for 2 hours and now you want us to wait another hour. And so apparently we had a choice to actually just go sit on the bus and wait, which would have been probably a better deal. But we follow this guy across the entire airport, literally from like the farthest end to the other end. It takes us like a half an hour of walking with all of our luggage. We get to the other side of the airport. There's a little cafe there, and he says that Explorica will give us €5 each for the cafe right now. So whatever we want to order, as long as it's €5 or less. Which is really nothing. You can get nothing at an airport in Paris for €5 or less. It's practically nothing. What I ended up getting was a little strawberry tartelette and like an orange juice, I think, like that. And that probably, I think, went over €5 a little bit. But that strawberry tartelette or tart or whatever you want to call it, which is literally, it's just like a little pastry crust filled with like custard and then topped with fresh strawberries. That was so delicious to me. I was like, Paris desserts are going to rock. It's going to be amazing. The strawberries were just so fresh, and I really loved it. It almost made up for the whole thing for me. Other people were not as satisfied, but I really liked that. So we sit there for another like 30 minutes or something like that. The other group shows up. They get all their baggage and everything gets sorted out. And so we finally get to leave this airport after being there for like 3 hours or something like that. And so then we find, we've been awake pretty much because none of us really slept on the plane. We had been awake at that point for many hours and dragged luggage around, been through a whole flight and been uncomfortable and sat in an airport for hours and stuff like that. None of us were really happy with anything. All of us pretty much wanted a shower and just relax for an hour or something like that. But we find out that because we're running so late now, all we can do is go to the hotel, rush to the hotel, drop off all our shit, and then rush over to meet the actual tour director, and go on the walking tour. So we go to the hotel, we drop off all our shit in like one of the rooms was ready. And so we dropped off all our shit into that room, and then we rushed back out. We got onto the metro, the tube, the subway, the metro, whatever you want to call it. So there we got our first experience with the metro, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And we go and we meet Claire, who is our tour director, who is way too bubbly of a human being. I thought she was thought she was from the United States, but apparently she was from Canada, and she's lived in France for however many years, and she just loves France and blah blah blah. And so she takes us on this walking tour of the Latin Quarter and Notre Dame and things like that. And this whole tour thing takes hours. We're there for a few hours. That day sucked so much. I thought the trip was just dead in the water at that point. Like, I hated that day so much. Because it was just walking, like we were all dead tired, and it was just walking and walking and walking. And so we go to Notre Dame, whatever you want to call it, on the first day, when we're all dead tired. None of us wanted to have to do with anything. And Notre Dame it's really impressive. Don't get me wrong. It is a very impressive building. But I hated it because I was just so tired, and I was just done with everything. And I'm looking around this cathedral, and all I think of is Assassin's Creed, because a lot of the Assassin's Creed are kind of based on that kind of architecture and things like that. And Then I remember this cathedral specifically. I'm almost certain is in Assassin's Creed Unity, which took place in Paris. And then I'm walking around this cathedral, and I'm just thinking about how shitty that game was. And so it just pissed me off because I thought, this is a really impressive building, and they ruined it. They ruined it by putting in that shitty game. And I think I can remember there is a mission that takes place in the cathedral. And I swear I can remember the mission because I remember being pissed off that you couldn't call guards over or something like that by whistling or something like that. I remember complaining about during my Let's Play that game. And so that's what I'm thinking about while I'm walking around Notre Dame, this ancient cathedral at the heart of France, or at the heart of Paris. And so it just pissed me off. The whole thing just pissed me off. I'd like to go back, at some point when I'm calmer and happier and just kind of enjoy the architecture. But yeah, I was pretty pissed off. We went around the whole Ile de la Cité and the Latin Quarter and blah, blah, blah. And, our tour director just told us some facts about things and blah, blah, blah. And told us about the Sorbonne and blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't really interested in any of it. Just kind of pissed me off. And I just saw people walking around eating gelato and all these delicious desserts and stuff like that. And we're just like, well, let's go on to the next thing. Here's a Shakespeare and Company bookstore, and just whatever. Yeah. So it was kind of a wreck. And so then finally, we get to go to dinner. So dinner the first day was this, I can't remember the name in French, I'm sorry, but it's basically like a beef stew. But they really don't use many vegetables in French cooking, from what I have experienced. So it's literally just like beef, potatoes, and some carrots, and that's it. And like this really like this gravy type sauce, and then you get a lot of bread. And that actually wasn't that bad. I kind of enjoyed that meal. I could eat that pretty regularly. The thing that you learn about French cooking, or at least in Paris, from what I have found, um, really just French, just getting food in France, in Paris, is the portions are really small. Which is something that I knew. It's just, well, here it is, and there it's true. Um, Surprisingly, I don't find myself as hungry as I thought I would be. Um, I'm thirsty all the time because it's unseasonably hot out, and we do tremendous amounts of walking, like 20,000 steps a day and stuff like that. So I'm always thirsty, and really the thing that bothers, I'm like, my feet are dead. Okay. And I know I'm out of shape completely. I spend like 16 hours a day in a chair in front of a computer screen. I get it. Um, but it's like, I thought like, okay, I'm just going to be tired all the time. My legs will physically be like jello. I'll just be like, my legs are completely fine. I have no problem with my my calves, okay, maybe a little, but my legs are fine. I'm not really tired at all. It's literally just the bottoms of my feet. And I just got new shoes before the trip, and I'm wondering if it's them, if it's the new shoes or what, but it's just the bottoms of my feet are just ruined. I'm worried that they're going to start bleeding or something like that. I don't know what it is. So I wish it was more like balanced throughout my body, that everything was aching, but no, it's just the bottom of my feet. And I'd like to say it's because we do a lot of standing. Like when I'm walking, it's not as bad as when we're just standing in place. And we are doing a lot of standing along with our walking, because it's tours. And so you stand for when the tour guide is discussing stuff. You're standing there, or when you're waiting in line, you're standing there, and you're doing a lot of standing. When you're looking at stuff, you're standing. And because our full tour group is like 40 people, things take a long time to kind of process and to get tickets and do all this stuff, and so you just do a lot of standing. It's just murder. But anyways, so yeah, portions are small. I haven't found myself to be that hungry, which is nice. For dessert that night, we got a lemon tart, which was basically like a lemon bar. Which was really disappointing, because the previous dessert that I had was that strawberry tartelette, which was delicious, and this just fell completely flat for pretty much everybody. We were hoping to order some wine with that dinner, but the French are not experts of customer service, and so we just did not get a chance to really order anything. And so then we went back to the hotel. We went back on the metro. And I pretty much everybody kind of just hit the bed and passed out. So the next day, the next day started out really well. Every day we get a full breakfast at the hotel, which it's a hotel / restaurant, and so their breakfast is really, really, really good. It's got like all these fresh croissants and sausages and eggs and like, I don't know what they called, but they're like flat pancakes, and they've got all these like fillings and stuff like that, and orange juice and apple juice, coffee. It's really nice. It's the best hotel breakfast I've ever had. So props to that. And so then we went on this guided sightseeing tour on a bus. And the bus itself was uncomfortable. Again, really cramped, because they just try to put as many seats in a bus as they can legally get away with. But we had a tour guide, like a separate tour guide just for this excursion. His name was Joseph. He had like a light French accent. I don't know if he's a native Frenchian. Maybe he's English and he just moved here. I'm not exactly sure his background, but yeah, he was just basically like this jolly Frenchman. He spoke with a light French accent. He was really just a really enjoyable guy to listen to. Very knowledgeable. He was just kind of jolly, had a good sense of humor. He was middle aged, I guess. And so, yeah, we went around on a bus around Paris, and he just kind of told us as many interesting facts as he had about Paris and stuff like that. And then we went out to Versailles, which, if you don't know, I guess I could mention the history there. So originally, I guess Paris was like the seat of royal power in France. And then through a series of events, Louis XIV was like, "Fuck all this. I'm gonna move out where I'm not surrounded by the peasantry, for fear of a revolt or something like that." He wanted to have like time to get the army ready or something like that. So he moved like the entire government out, like way out of the city, to Versailles. And so now there's a big palace at Versailles, which was also a hunting ground, and it's so now there's a town there, and blah blah blah. And so, right, so we get to Versailles, the big palace of Versailles. It's pretty large, and the gardens of Versailles is just this huge open area around it and stuff like that. And before we go in, we actually got to go to the little, like, the markets of Versailles nearby, which was really interesting because in Paris, pretty much everybody speaks passable English. You can't really work like a customer type in a shop or anything like that in Paris without speaking a little bit of English. It's the most visited city in the world. Like, you just got to speak some English. But out in Versailles, that's not really the case. And so we went into some little boulangeries and patisseries and stuff like that they didn't speak any English. They had no knowledge of English. And so that was actually really interesting, to really just interact with the French. And so I ended up getting another strawberry tartelette because it was just, I liked that so much, and this one was delicious as well. This had even more strawberries on it, so it was even better. And then I got a croque monsieur or something like that, which is basically like it's a grilled cheese, but it's on like a long baguette, and they put like meat and stuff in there as well, and it was really delicious. Very, very, very cheesy, but quite delicious. So that was a very nice lunch. Then we went into the Palace of Versailles, and we split up into two groups. And one of the groups, our group, half the group got Joseph again as our tour guide, and I was very happy because I knew him, from the bus tour and all that, and he was a very cool, funny guy. So I was like, oh, it's great, it's great. The other groups, I got some new guy that we didn't know, and I was like, oh, that's good. We got the guy that I know and I can understand. Little did I know I would later meet the other guy, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So we go through the Palace of Versailles, and the one thing I think of when I went through there was Anne Orlando. Miyazaki from Dark Souls and all that was strongly inspired by medieval European architecture and all that kind of stuff, and it definitely shows when you go through. Yeah, I mean, I've thought of that a lot in here in France, at the Palace of Versailles. We went on a chateau excursion yesterday, so we visited some old castles from the Renaissance and stuff like that, and you can absolutely see all this kind of influence. That's really cool. I don't know if I'd think it's as cool as if I hadn't played Dark Souls, but it's definitely cool to see. We went to this chateau, and we were walking through these bedrooms, and it was literally like, in Anne Orlando, you run through a bedroom. I think it's supposed to be Guinevere's bedroom in Anne Orlando. And there's some silver knights in there and stuff like that. And it was literally just like copy pasted from one of these bedrooms that we saw in a chateau. It's a recreation, but still. And Anyways, Palace of Versailles was pretty cool. Definitely some interesting stories involved in that, and all the different Louis that lived there and operated out of there. The gardens I was not happy with because it was just this huge open area with no shade whatsoever, and it's like a 90-degree day, no clouds in sight, and it's just like fuck all this. I was not having it. And so I was just kind of sitting there in the sun. And I was just like, I don't, tell me when we leave. But then my sister told, she went around and she found this like little cafe down like in this shaded grove in the gardens. You're like, come down here. There's a cafe. And so we went down there, and so I drank a Coke. I drank a Coke in the gardens of Versailles. Soda in France, I thought it was going to be way less prevalent than it is. Because I thought, nobody in France really drinks soda. They all just drink coffee, tea, or wine, and that's it. And there's really no soda. That's not the case. There is soda everywhere. Even in the little bakeries in Versailles, you will find soda. But they will charge the shit out of your wallet for it. They have learned that Americans and other countries love soda and will pay for it, and so they will charge you for it. So you can easily pay a few euro for a small, like 8-ounce can of soda. I went to a little cafe while the others were all in some perfume shop. And I was sitting there at this little French cafe, and I was like, I'll get an Orangina. Orangina is, oh man, I wish that was more popular in America. It's basically orange soda, but instead of like generic orange flavor, they use it's basically like orange juice. It's like orange juice soda. It sounds worse than it is. It's very tasty. So I was like, I'll order Orangina in a French cafe in this alley. €6 for a little bottle of Orangina that I drank in 30 seconds because they took them like 20 minutes to get to me. And so finally when I get it, they're like, oh, we're leaving in a minute. And I'm like, fuck. I chug down this €6 little soda. But c'est la vie. Anyways. So then we kind of just drove back through, back to Paris, and we went on the Arc de Triomphe and the Champs-Élysées and all these things that I can't really pronounce properly. You've probably, if you know anything about Paris, you've probably seen this. There's this giant roundabout around the Arc de Triomphe, and, if you've seen videos or pictures of it, it just does not do it justice. The traffic situation at the Arc de Triomphe. There are horizontal cars in the lanes. It's just absolutely mind-boggling. Apparently that's like if you want to get your driver's license in Paris, like during the test, you have to do the Arc de Triomphe. It's like necessary to get your license. That's what we were told. I don't know if that's true. But I might believe it because it is insane. And so then we spent some time on the Champs-Élysées, which is the most famous street in the world, we were told. It's 10 lanes wide, and it's just filled with shops, all leading up to the Arc de Triomphe and blah, blah, blah. And so there's many, many shops. Some of the most famous fashion shops in the world are on the street. And I had no interest in that whatsoever. I was thinking about buying something for my German acquaintance, but she hates the French, wants nothing to do with French stuff, and so she just flat out refused me buying anything French for her. So, okay, save me some money, I guess. I'll pick something up in London. And so I went with a few other people, including the teacher and my nephew, and we went to this little, basically a bistro on the Champs-Élysées. Expensive, definitely classy. And I got it was basically kind of an Italian bistro, really. I got a panna cotta and a kheer, which is like a wine, but it's like got like some sort of berry flavoring. I don't know. Let me talk about wine real quick. Since I've been here, I've tried 5 different wines. Ranging from just whatever generic wine they threw at us on one of our dinner nights, to the kir that I ordered at the little bistro on the Champs-Élysées, and as well as like local crafted wines from the Loire Valley, so like real local stuff. The best one that I had, which was a rosé from the Loire Valley, I would say was tolerable. And I think really what it comes down to is it's an acquired taste. And I don't mean wine, I mean alcohol. Alcohol in general is an acquired. There is a specific, like, kind of burning taste to it that alcohol has. And obviously, this is probably very common knowledge to everybody on the planet, but I'm coming into the alcohol game very late. And so all the wines that I had that kind of burning sensation to it, this kind of harshness to it, which just is not something I associated with wine. I wouldn't have thought that there was like this harshness to it. I thought wine is supposed to be very crisp and smooth and fruity and blah blah blah. So the best one that I had was supposedly, it was pretty much like the sweetest wine in France, pretty much. Like some other people didn't even want to try it because it was just too sweet. I would not sit here and tell you it's so sweet. Like, lemonade is sweet. Kool-Aid is sweet. I don't know. That wine it was like, okay, I can get what they're kind of saying. There's a fruitiness to it, but it still has that kind of harshness to it. So I would never pick it over like a Pepsi. I wouldn't just sit around and say, oh, well, I'll have some of that. That sounds great. I'll drink a whole bottle. Like, but maybe in a year or so, maybe I could say that because I got used to it. One of the nights at one of the dinners, I ordered a mojito, which I think is supposedly the most popular cocktail in Paris. I've seen multiple restaurants serve mojitos and sort of feature them prominently. So never had a mojito before. Never really had any sort of liquor like that before. So I was like, I'm going to have a mojito. That was probably better than any of the wines I've had. It was very refreshing. You get the lime in there, you get like the little mint in there. It was very refreshing, especially after a long day in the hot sun walking around and stuff like that. I can definitely see it being very refreshing. I still would not say, oh, I'd rather have that on an average day than a Pepsi, but I could picture myself sitting around at a cookout drinking a couple mojitos because, the flavor itself is not like, holy shit, it's amazing. But you get the refreshing part, it's definitely cool and refreshing. But you also get the alcohol effect. You get the buzz and stuff like that, which is something that I've never had before. So that was really my first experience with that. And you sort of get this kind of floaty feeling a little bit. Really, what it kind of was at first was like, it felt really weird. I was like, did somebody drug me? What the hell? Like, I had to think about it. Like, oh no, I drank alcohol. Basically, like, it felt like I wanted to like look here, and so my eyes would go here, and then my brain would be like, "Oh, okay." That's kind of what it felt like. Again, this is probably just common stuff to everybody, but this is all new experiences. So, if you don't have anything to do, and you're not like operating heavy machinery or any bullshit like that, you can just sit there for like hours. Yeah, I could see myself drinking some mojitos. So I'm interested in trying some other stuff. Wine, I don't know. I mean, I'll keep trying it, but I don't think I'm never going to sit around and just, give me a bottle of wine, which is probably good. I don't think that's a good thing to say. Anyways, day 4, we went to the Louvre. I have no interest in the Louvre. I have no interest in art, really almost sculptures. I really have no interest in any of that shit. I'm sorry. I know there are people that can appreciate it. I'm not one of them. And so, we went to the Louvre. We went through a couple of the wings. I didn't even care about going to the third wing. I was just so freaking done with the day. Just so much walking. And so I saw the Mona Lisa. I had no expectations for the Mona Lisa, and yet I was still disappointed. I don't know. I had this thought that maybe when I see the Mona Lisa, maybe something will click and I'll be like, wow, the Mona Lisa. No, it's just a freaking picture of a woman, and I don't care. Um, the funniest thing is how I would say 90% of the people that are in that room with the Mona Lisa, they crowd up to it, and there are crowds every day, all day, every day, crowds in front of the Mona Lisa, and they get up, they push up there, they get out their phone, and they take just a snapshot of just the Mona Lisa. And so there are millions and probably millions of like just pictures taken of just the Mona Lisa from slightly different angles. And they don't have anything else in the picture. It's not like a selfie where people are like this next to the Mona Lisa, which I can slightly understand. Is like, hey, there's you next to the Mona Lisa. You got proof that you were there, right there with the Mona Lisa. No, it's literally just a completely generic screenshot picture of the Mona Lisa in its frame, and it's like, why is that important to you? I know you can just like, so you can go through your camera roll later and be like, oh yeah, there's the Mona Lisa. I saw it. But it's like, I don't know, are you forgetting at some point that you saw the Mona Lisa? If you would forget because you don't have a picture, it must not be that important. I don't think I'll ever forget. Like, I'm going to sit around and wonder, did I see the Mona Lisa? And like, no, I'm going to always remember I saw it, even if it's not really important to me. It's just a simple fact. Like, yeah, I saw the Mona Lisa. It's not like I would forget and then somebody would be like, oh, here's a completely generic picture that doesn't include you, but there's the Mona Lisa. And they're like, oh, yeah, I saw the Mona Lisa. That's right. Thank you. Anyways, I think we saw some sculptures, but I don't know if any of them are really like notable. Because the only sculpture that I could ever think of that I would be like, oh, I know that sculpture is Michelangelo's David, but that's in Florence. That's not here. So it's just the only thing really here that people talk about is Mona Lisa. But in the same room as the Mona Lisa, on the other side of it, on the other side of the room on the wall, is a gigantic tapestry, like just humongous, the biggest tapestry I've ever seen in my life. Or it's a painting or something. I think it was a painting, not a tapestry. So I guess that's even more impressive. Just this tremendous painting. It takes up the entire wall. I don't know the name of it. I'm sure you can look it up. It's like, no, I don't know. I don't know what it's called. But it's a gigantic painting with Jesus in the middle. And everyone else around him is like arguing and shit like that. And they're talking. And he's just staring like dead face in the camera. That painting, just the scale of it and the size, all that, just that was so much more impressive than the Mona Lisa. So I don't know. People were taking pictures of the wrong thing, personally. But anyways, so after that, we just kind of sat around. We got some French fries from McDonald's in the Louvre, and I just was like, all right, I'm done with the Louvre. I have no interest in this because it was not a guided tour. They just let us go in the Louvre and check out whatever we wanted. I would have much preferred the guided tour. Somebody actually tell me, this information about this, because they all have little plaques. Everything in the Louvre has these little plaques, these little signs that tell you about the piece of art. It's all in French, no English anywhere. So unless you read French, you have no idea what you're looking at most of the time. So yeah, it was kind of a bummer. So then they went to Fragonard's Perfume Museum, which was it was a guided tour by this really, really, really cute, tiny French woman. I have no idea how old she was. Maybe she was probably about my age. Very tiny. She was like 4'7". Yeah, really, really cute little French girl. Spoke with this French accent. She guided us through this perfume museum, which is a concept I would have never even imagined as possible. And yes, it is just as boring as you think it is. And then after the tour, which is like 20 minutes, not even, they dump you into the Fragonard perfume shop, which has all these perfumes and soaps and blah, blah, blah. And as I said, I would have bought something for my German acquaintance, but she was not interested. So I was just like, fuck all this. And so I went outside to the cafe and I paid €6 for a soda. Then we went to dinner that night, and I don't remember. So one of the nights we had the beef stew. One of the nights we had roast chicken and French fries. It was pretty much something my mom would make, and she has no cooking experience. She has no real cooking knowledge whatsoever. Very disappointing. One of the dinners. Oh, I think that night we had burger and fries. They really like French fries here, which is kind of boggling because apparently they make fun of the Belgians a lot. Like, they love to make fun of the Belgians, and yet, French fries are from Belgium, and they stole that, and they claim it as their own, and they sell French fries everywhere. So I don't know. So it was a burger and fries, and it was okay. It was a decent burger and fries. It was just, why am I sitting in this little restaurant in Paris eating a burger and French fries? I don't know. Then we went on a river cruise on the Seine River, which was we were just on this big like pontoon type boat, and we went all down the river, and there was like a voiceover on like the megaphone, I guess. It was like just a pre-recorded tour guide. But everybody was talking. You couldn't hear this thing at all. So it was pretty much just looking at all the sights. And that was pretty nice. It's nice when you're not walking and you're just looking at stuff. Pretty much whenever we did that, it was pretty enjoyable. And the weather was really nice. It wasn't too hot. It was a nice breeze. And you just get to see, I guess, doing that, you got to see actually a bit more of the romantic side of Paris, where a lot of the times it's just a dirty shit show and you got drunks walking around with piss in their pants and just whatever. But when you're on the river and you get to see all these, like all the college students from the Sorbonne and stuff like that, just picnicking out at like 9 p.m. with a bottle of wine, and they're just all sitting around and, enjoying themselves. It's a nice image. It was a nice image. Then yesterday, day 5, we had an optional excursion out to the Loire Valley, which is where all these chateaus, these castles are located. And so to get out there is like a 2.5 hour bus ride. So it was a lot of driving yesterday. And in the morning, as we're getting on the bus, we get joined by this guy named Sam, who I later found out, I didn't even realize it, he was the other guy from the Versailles Palace. He led around the other group instead of Joseph, who led us around. So now we got to meet him. And nice guy. He was born he was from Chicago. He moved here 9 years ago. He speaks fluent French and all that. He speaks with just an American accent and all that. He looked like a young Nicolas Cage. He was a funny guy, really nice guy. And so I'm just like, okay, this is fine. I like the guided tours and all that. And so we're driving along, and he's taking questions from the group and all that. And so people sort of ran out of stuff to ask about just France and stuff like that. And so they started asking about him. And so they started asking him, how long he's been here and, where he lives here and blah, blah, blah. And then they asked him about his college degrees and his education and stuff like that. And so he mentions he's working on his doctorate. And he's working on like his thesis or whatever, his dissertation. I don't know the difference or all that. His big final project. And so he lists off his title for his thesis or whatever, his thing. And it's I forgot the whole name of it, but he mentions something the history of supernatural fiction. And so as soon as I hear that, I'm like, huh? Supernatural fiction. When I think of supernatural fiction, of me, of course, I go to Lovecraft. It was like, oh, yeah, but he mentioned like the influence of French on the English and the supernatural fiction. I'm like, he's talking about just really like ancient myths and stuff like that, and blah blah blah. And so they did some more questions, and people started petering out for questions, and nobody was asking him anything. So I was like, oh, you mentioned supernatural fiction and blah, blah, blah. Could you elaborate on that? And so he says, sure, it's not a question I get often, but sure. And so he starts talking about it. And he mentions Arthur Machen, um, who is a sort of an older supernatural fiction writer that influenced Lovecraft and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, but, what about, I'm sitting there wondering, okay, what about the key one? And he finally mentions H.P. Lovecraft. And so, of course, I can't help but smile. And he says, oh, you've heard of him. And I couldn't help but chuckle. I'm like, yeah. Trying not, be a little humble, but I probably have like the most popular YouTube channel for the Cthulhu mythos. Which, I don't know really how you measure that, but I'm up there. I gotta be up there, right? If you search Cthulhu, I'm the number one result. That's got to count for something. So he had not heard of me, of course. But this fact astounded him. He was very blown away. And so, like, the tour guide was asking, like, what is the Cthulhu mythos? And so we were explaining it in tandem and stuff like that. And I could tell he was very excited about this. And so then he like kind of wraps that up and he puts the microphone down. He actually comes down across the bus and sits next to me. And we sit there talking for like 45 minutes about Cthulhu mythos and Lovecraft and stuff like that. And yeah, it turns out he's just a huge Lovecraft nerd, and he was very knowledgeable about Lovecraft's life and stuff like that. He's definitely done his research. He was not as knowledgeable about the mythos itself and how it all kind of fits together. He was more knowledgeable about Lovecraft and his life than I was. But yeah, we had a great discussion. It was really, really wild. Both of us were just kind of astounded to have that discussion on this morning in Paris. Because I doubt he expected to be talking. It's not like the mythos is completely obscure, like only 100 people know about it, but it's not that popular. And so for me to be, I have this big YouTube following for the mythos, and for this guy to be, writing like his thesis about Lovecraft, it was just a crazy, crazy coincidence. But yeah, very, very cool. And so later in the day, he came up to me again. He was chatting with me about it. He's like, it was very funny. Like, he thought it was like a really stupid question to ask me which like deity is my favorite, and of course, I had no qualms about answering that question. And so, I told him about the whole YouTube channel and how YouTube works and all that. And then I told we were discussing Nyarlathotep, and I told him about my metaphor that I put in the video about how bacteria, doesn't think that we're evil when we wash our hands with soap and stuff. And he loved that. He thought that was just completely brilliant. So, yeah, it definitely puffed up my head a little bit. But yeah, it was just such a crazy coincidence. So really cool guy. He told me about this Alan Moore comic series called Providence that I had never heard of, or I think I might have heard of it, but I completely forgot about it. And he was showing me off all these different covers for the series that they do, and some of the artwork is just really, really awesome. So I have to check that out when I get back. And so yeah, he shook my hand at the end of the day and said that he would definitely check out my YouTube series and how cool it was that we could have this conversation. It was really wild. It was really wild. Cool guy. So anyways, during that day we visited some castles. The first one was a guided tour by him, so he actually took us through and told us stuff. The second one was just kind of, he let us go into the castle and wander around on our own. And then the third one, we didn't even get to go in. We just got to take pictures outside of it. So it got kind of progressively worse throughout the day. And like I said, the castles reminded me of Dark Souls, so that was pretty cool. But other than that, yeah, I'm like, oh, castle, I got to see them. At the first stop, the Chateau d'Amboise, I don't know. The first castle we saw, there was a little village built around it, and by the village there was like a traditional French market. And so it was all these French people that set up stands, They set up their little tents and they sold their goods, food and clothes and blah, blah, blah. Not a single word of English amongst the entire market, but that was, again, very interesting to just interact completely in French, of which my knowledge is, I can't really speak. I can read some of it, but speaking it, but we have a bunch of French students with us, and they do okay. My nephew is a retard. And so I got some fresh strawberries, and oh my god, the strawberries here, they're so good. It's ridiculous. And I got some chorizo bread, which was pretty good, and we bought some bottles of wine. That was where I did some wine tasting and stuff. Yeah, it was a nice little picnic that we had. Overall, it was a good day. That was probably the best day, I would say, overall. Even though there was 5 hours during that day that was just spent driving, but some sleeping time wasn't too bad. Then for dinner, we had couscous. So in America, couscous is, I don't know, I've never once heard anybody mention in America couscous. Only on the Food Network, that's about it. Couscous is the number one takeout dish in Paris. So they don't order Chinese food, they don't order pizza, they order couscous. I don't know exactly how it's delivered as far as takeout, but we actually went to a sit-down restaurant. And basically it's like this, it's like wheat. It's like this fine grated wheat. And it's very little small bits and pieces of wheat. And that sort of serves as the foundation. You scrape that into a bowl. And then they have this, basically a stew kind of. It has little bits of, it had bits of vegetables and stuff like that. And you put that on top of the wheat. And you sort of, so that gets all kind of liquidy and stuff like that. And then they gave us a whole leg of chicken, of roast chicken, and you put that on there. And so you sort of scrape out this chicken, and then you eat that with the juices and then, the stew type stuff and the wheat. And I think basically the people in our group that had been in Paris before and lived in Paris, and done that, our teacher who'd been to Paris before, our teacher, the tour guide who lives here, one of the other aunts who lived here for a little while, they all loved it. Oh, I love couscous, love couscous. Everyone else who was their first time, including myself, was just none of us got the appeal of it at all. I would order General Tao's every time over couscous. So I don't know. We just didn't really get it. What I probably should have done is just eaten the stew and the chicken. The wheat, I don't know. I don't get that. I don't get how that's better than rice. I don't know. And I don't like that the chicken is it's like a leg of chicken. It's on the bone and all that. And so I'm mixing, I have to scrape this off, into the stew. And it's just do that for me. I don't know. None of us were really happy with that. But, oh well. Then for dessert, we got this little fruit cup, which was very fresh fruit. It had pears in there and mango and stuff. That was actually really nice, really nice. And then that brings us to today, where I have a free day. This is why I'm talking to you, because I decided to opt out. I didn't want to go anywhere, partly because I'm just, I'm tired of my, whatever. But because they went to the Musée d'Orsay, which is an impressionist painting museum. And then they were going shopping. I'm okay, well, fuck all that. I'm just going to stay home and watch TV and do this video. And eat McDonald's. So that's pretty much where we are. Tonight we're supposed to go to a creperie, although I guess I'm going to have to actually take a taxi or an Uber or something like that if I want to go there. So that's going to be kind of annoying by myself in Paris. Yeah, and then so tomorrow we, I guess, are try to do the catacombs, and then we're going to the Sacré-Cœur, and then another dinner, and then the next day we go to London, so we'll see. So the metro, I didn't really get to talk about. The metro, supposedly it's a lot better than the New York subway. It's a lot cleaner, which I guess that's probably true. I haven't seen just piles of vomit around or anything like that. You definitely do get a nice array of smells
If you picture all sorts of bad smells that you can think of, that's probably what you'll find down there. It can get very, very, very cramped, though. I mean, you will just be like smothered by French people during rush hour. It is just terrible because our hotel is like, we are nowhere near the heart of the city. I can't even see the Eiffel Tower. I should give you my view here from the window that I'm looking out of. So this is our view from my hotel window. And so we're quite a ways outside of the heart of Paris. And there we go. So it routinely takes us like a half an hour to get back from dinner, just riding the metro. And if it's really crowded during rush hour, and you do not get to sit, you're just crammed in there with other people, and it's hot and it's just smothering. It's really terrible. It makes me hate the city. And we ride the metro every single day. To get out to places, to get back from places, to go from place to place. It's just all the metro, and it's just, ugh. I could not live here. I could not. But I guess it's nice that it's a bit cleaner than it normally would be in other cities, I suppose. There are a lot of people. There are a lot of people that sell fruit down there. They have their fruit stands, and I'm just like, who the fuck in this city is buying Subway fruit? There are plenty of perfectly good fruit places above the Subway. Why are you in like the dungeons buying bananas? I don't know. I don't get it. I guess if you're really in a hurry and you need your mango right now, while you're getting to the metro, to the train, there you go, I guess. But I would not trust any Subway fruit in this city. There's a lot of gypsies from like Romania and stuff like that. So you'll see them sitting around all over the place. And if you make eye contact, then they'll definitely say something. Otherwise, they'll just kind of murmur out something, and then you just walk past. They're not really that big of a deal. My friend Ziggy had like horror stories of when he came here of just being surrounded by gypsies. I don't know if they've cleaned up the city since then or what, but we've not had anything that drastic. They just kind of sit there. We are constantly warned about pickpockets everywhere we go. Just watch your stuff, pickpocket, pickpocket, pickpocket. No one in our group of 40 or so has been pickpocketed. I've not seen anybody be pickpocketed. I've been on the lookout constantly for anybody that might be a pickpocket, and I guess I don't know what I'm supposed to look for. I expect just, a guy, just sort of some shady looking dude. That's what I expect. Who doesn't have like any luggage or any bags or anything like that. He's just got like his hands in his pockets and he's just like scoping out the crowd. That's what I'm looking for. But I don't. It could be kids. I have no idea. It could be like some Oliver Twist stuff. I have no idea. Yeah, I guess that's kind of about it. So yeah, food has been decent. Wine has been, I guess, disappointing to me. I thought I would just be like, oh, wine is so amazing, but that's not the case yet. I've drank just a lot of soda and a lot of water. That's pretty much about it. The city itself, yeah, it's not just pure romance. Oh, Paris. It's a lot of it's pretty grimy and kind of disgusting, like any major city. And really, when you get down to it, yeah, they speak French instead of English, but it's not that different than New York. Because really, why would it be? It's just a big city of sort of like-minded people. A lot of I guess my biggest problem with the trip so far is the fact that it's part of this tour. This is not a vacation. This is not a vacation. This is an experience. And for me, I like vacations. When I go somewhere, I just want to sit around and eat food. That's what I like. That's what I like to do. I like to just relax. And even though most of my life is pretty much a vacation, I thought I would just relax in a different city, in a different part of the world. But no, this is a trip. This is an experience. They are doing it at a breakneck speed. You're just constantly doing this and this and this. You have no energy at all to do anything when you get done with the day. You're just hit the bed, get up at 6 in the morning the next day, and you're back at it again. And that's just ridiculous. So yeah, I'm the only one that opted out for today because I just wanted a day off. But I'm perfectly okay with it. I'm much happier just doing this than going to the Musée d'Orsay. So yeah, it's a little obnoxious, and like I said, the fact if I didn't have the Germany thing added on, I would be more upset. But I know that after all this craziness, I get to go to Germany, and I hopefully get to relax a bit more, do things at my own pace, and eat a lot of sausage and blah blah blah. But I guess I'll wrap it up. This is probably the longest hanging with Mangg we've done in a while. But there's a lot to say. We've done quite a bit. The craziest thing was talking with that guy about the mythos and Lovecraft and stuff like that. Everyone else in our group was so confused with what we were talking about, but he and I had a very good conversation that I did not expect. That was probably the best day overall, just because there was very little walking and I got to talk about the mythos. So, so I guess, I'll check in next week. I'll be in Germany next week when I do the next hang with Mangg. So I'll be in a different hotel room. Maybe I can get my German acquaintance, friend, person, female, to hop on with me. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I don't regret coming. I can say that at least. It's been, I suppose, a worthwhile experience. It just probably could be a little bit better. But I guess I'm enjoying myself overall. So there you have it. All right. I hope this stream is legible and listenable and stuff like that. And nobody really said much, I don't think. So that's fine. All right. I guess I will sign off then. So my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. And au revoir.